Hey guys, welcome to the session on Coffee with Prab. And today we have a special guest, my friend, Mr. Pankaj. In the past,
Hello.
Mr. Pankaj has did sessions with us, and I was curious about how to implement GDPR. And whenever I used to have a privacy queries, I reach out to some of the few folks, and Pankaj is one of them. So I thought the kind of information I used to get from Pankaj in my one-to-one call, I thought let me bring this on this platform, which is basically get benefit by multiple people. When it come to Pankaj, 8+ year of experience in the data privacy, where he was involved in consulting, products, banking, manufacturing sector, marketing, and all that. So as you know, data privacy is a buzzword, and GDPR is basically the new things. There's a lot of scholars who are using ChatGPT and AI. They use generating a content, but what is practical GDPR? How practically we implement? To be frank, Pankaj bhai, I was searching multiple videos on YouTube where I could not find how to implement GDPR apart from using a chat GPT prompt. But it is glad that, okay, in this particular platform, we got an opportunity by Mr. Pankachavan, who going to share the practical case study, how to implement GDPR from zero. Thanks, Pankaj, by taking out the time from a weekend. And I know weekend is it's something is very, very, very busy in Dubai. And taking out the time for this community, it is really appreciating.
Thank you, Prab. First of all, I'm very happy to be in your session, and definitely I would like to share some insights about how the data privacy, is implemented internally within the organization. So, like you rightly said, so I have 8+ years of experience, and I've worked with multiple industry. Currently, I'm working with an insurance sector.
Mm-hmm.
So probably I assume you can see my screen now. So
Yep.
on the screen, you can see there are a lot of boxes, a lot of circles, and this is how the pathway of data privacy is. So the idea today is that I will tell you how I had started this journey as a consultant, and from there, how I developed my skill set on implementing the end-to-end data privacy segment. So I have worked with a lot of multiple jurisdictions, GDPR being one of them, and I have worked with Middle Eastern regulations, especially from Bahrain, Oman, UAE, Qatar, and then I have worked with Singapore data privacy regulation as well. I have worked with extensively with GDPR because I was earlier associated with one of the Swedish firm. So that is how I have this idea, and the logic that I'll be telling you guys today is more about how I have implemented it when there was nothing in the organization. Like from scratch, I have built certain programs, and in few organizations there were certain setups like privacy policy were there, and from there how I picked up to implement the end-to-end program. So the entire conversation, I guess, will be on those lines today.
Pankaj, before we're going
Okay.
to discuss about this GDPR, okay?
Hmm.
There's a one question I always ask my panelists and all that, the people who come to this session and all that. If
Hmm.
someone want to make a career in data privacy,
Hmm.
okay, so what is the future of this particular vertical?
Sure. Okay. So if somebody, let's say, is willing to join this, good field of data privacy, which is a boom in today's world, also, I see it a boom for at least next 5 to 8 years easily,
Hmm.
because everywhere the global landscape has been changing, especially after GDPR when it was
Hmm.
launched back in 25th May 2018.
Hmm.
After that, many regulation picked up, CCPA came in, then even today we have India's privacy regulation, which is in the forefront, and which will, they have given certain timeline to abide by. So if you
We
see,
can see a lot of scholars posting about India data privacy,
yeah,
DP.
yeah, a lot of people are posting it, and which is a good thing, and it's
Yeah.
also a good thing that our government has done from a perspective, because you know, right, how many telecalls we get each day, and our
Hmm.
personal data is just being
Hmm.
sold to. So from that angle, if you see, it's a very important aspect, and this is, I would say, a more technical field. Okay,
Hmm.
so you don't have to like worry that what I have studied so far and will that make sense. So basically, my background is I am a computer engineer and I have done MBA in marketing. So
Hmm.
after doing
Wow.
MBA in marketing, I have jumped into a data privacy. So it's like if I can do it, anybody can do it, sort of a thing. So basically, the future I see here is more towards, you can, if you are starting new in your career, then analyst position, probably the better way to start is get a certification, because certification generally will make you stand out of the entire crowd, so that like CIPE and CIPM, all those kind of certificates are provided by IIPP. And obviously, if you are in a, let's say, mid managerial level, and you are looking for a bump in data privacy, then in that case, probably your work experience along with relevant you know implementation of certain aspect, not related to data privacy, but let's say you have skills of program management, you know how to run an entire end-to-end program, you know how to convince the stakeholders, you know how to get things done. So from that perspective, if you see, even in mid-managerial position, if you get the technical skill set, let's say by certain courses, by reading certain books, if you are able to demonstrate that knowledge, that along with my program management skills I can do this, then that is also one of the thing I can see which will land you in a data privacy role.
Okay.
That is the case.
So we say that for the information security. I'm sorry, I'm going bit. We're just starting a session with something else, but
No.
because this video is watched by those people who also new to the data privacy and all that. See, when we say in information security, we need to know DNS, we need to know information security concepts and all that. To understand data privacy, what is the basics? What are the basics are required?
So basics are, you just need to know the regulation. So if data privacy as a concept, you should know. So information security, like, it's a very big concept, right? There are a lot of aspects. But if you see, data privacy is more focused. It's more about protecting personal information.
Okay.
If somebody tells you data privacy, then you should just think that it is about personal data, and then there are 7 to 8 modules which are associated with it. So we will be discussing those 7 to 8 modules today, but that is just a general thought process you should also have when you think about the word data privacy. So when you go in the organization, so it will be very easy as compared to information security. So I call it data privacy as a subset of information security.
Okay.
Because it's a very large.
We can able to maintain privacy by information security controls only.
I wouldn't say throughout, because as you know,
just requirement. I'm saying, yeah.
Yes, the basic ISO 27001, if you even do that, then yes, you are, I would say, more than above average people who are thinking about privacy. So when you think about privacy, think like you have to give control of the data to the person whose data it is in the question. So data subject is what we call them. And when you think about information security, the control is more towards organization, that how an organization takes care of the data, that what controls you put in place. They don't have to go, they don't ask generally the data subject, right? That what should we do? It's their control, it's their technological ability and all those aspects. Whereas in data privacy, we have to make sure that in the decision making process, even the consent of the data subject is taken into consideration, and that is where the data privacy as a domain becomes separate from information security to some extent.
Understood.
So that is the idea.
So if we take a example of today, like we're today talking about GDPR perspective and all that. So will it give a high level view to the people who new to GDPR, or will this session will be useful for those also who want to implement GDPR but want to know high level how it works actually? So can we say that this session, what we're going to do today, give them a framework, and based on
Yes.
that they can able to enhance? Yeah.
Yep. Yes. So this is someone who, let's say, doesn't have any knowledge about data privacy. So yes, we will be having the conversation from those lines. And let's say somebody has a brief knowledge that, okay, these are some of the things that I know. So for them also, it will be beneficial, because we'll be seeing in-depth analysis of how each phase has to be conducted.
Understood.
So this is based on my experience, my work experience, which I have been doing in my consulting firms and even in standalone organization. So from that perspective, I see it beneficial for both the audience.
Understood. No issues. So we can basically start with this aspect about what is GDPR, and sorry, how the GDPR is basically implemented in the organization, and what is basically the roadmap.
Yep, sure. So for those who don't know, let's say GDPR. GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. So it is, you can say, kind of an advanced level regulation in data privacy, which was proposed in the European Union. So European Union consists of 28 countries. So during last decade, the proposal was made during 2012. Then slowly it came into the force in 2016, and then in 2016 the organizations were given 2 years of timeline to comply with GDPR. That was in 2018. So by 2018 everybody has to be compliant. So what makes GDPR stands out with respect to the earlier versions of data privacy regulation is that it contains more controls over how things are driven in today's technological world. So let's
Okay.
say the cookies, let's say the how system wide, because the earlier regulation were more of a, what I can say, more computerized but not that advanced. So it was more like for paper based data also the same regulation were there, so same regulations were applicable. But in today's world where the internet has has given people the closeness, the globalization, so earlier regulation were more standalone to the European Union itself. But through GDPR, now the control has expanded towards the entire globe. So that was kind of a major change which GDPR brought in.
Okay.
Okay, so when we talk about GDPR, or let's say any data privacy program, so GDPR, we can keep that as a reference. Let's say any data privacy program, be it in any jurisdiction. So this workflow definitely will help you in achieving that. Okay, so let's say you are hired as a analyst, for example. Okay, you are starting new. Now, what would you do? Now, basically, there can be two aspects to it. Either an organization has certain level of controls, or organization is starting pretty new. Okay, so we'll take the second case, which is starting pretty new. They have nothing in place, so they have just hired you as an analyst or a consultant or a DPO, whatever you call it, and then it grows from there. So the first thing, so what will be the first thing that you will do? So for me, when I go to an organization, my first question to them is, where is your business generally located and where are your customer bases? Because that becomes my starting point to do the entire analysis. Why this is important? Now, when I say certain jurisdiction, let's say if I'm working in India and my customer base, vendor base, let's say they are also in India itself, then I know that for me, the prime thing or prime jurisdiction I need to focus is the data protection bill passed by the India, the DPDPA. Now, similarly, if I am working in India, but I have clients or customers in European Union, that means I have to comply by Indian privacy law and I have to comply by European privacy law. So the first point for me would be to knowing what regulations are going to come ahead so that I can plan my entire program accordingly. So that helps me to devise a perfect plan that, okay, now there are two regulations, let's say in European Union and in India. So what I would do as a first step, I'll do a gap analysis between the two regulations, that what are the common items between
Excellent.
both the regulations, and then what are the separate ones which I need to take care only for the European Union and only for India. So that will be my first task that I'll do.
An example?
So when I was working here, so currently I am working for, so I am the regional manager for 4 different countries, and the 4 different countries have different data privacy laws. So
Mm.
some are sectoral law, some are federal law.
Mm.
When I say sectoral, it means free zone based law, so only specific to that area, not to the entire country. So
Mm.
likewise. So what I did, so basically in an Excel, okay, in a normal Excel, I copy pasted all the uh, regulations. Okay, after that, you know, if you guys have seen the regulation, you know, certain, in regulation there are articles. So certain articles are just information based and certain articles are on which you have to take certain actions. So I have in one, once I have listed the entire regulation in one item, then I have selected the articles which are only actionable. Obviously, the some ones are like just definitions, right? Just definitions, who is the control. So those you kind of ignore. So after finding out that, okay, after, let's say out of 100 articles, 75 are actionable, 25 are just definition. So then these 75 articles, what I do, I try to see that, okay, now if I take Oman, for example, if there are 75 articles in Oman, then I will see in UAE what are the common ones. Okay, what are the common ones? I try to club them together. So, okay,
Okay.
so I know. So let's say club 25 might be common between two. So 50 stands here, 50 stands out there. Then I will try to see what are the individual gaps. So similarly, when I am working for in multi-jurisdiction kind of a setup, then this becomes my easily 1 or 2 months task to identify all the all the articles, finding out the gaps, and so on. So this is my first step. And after that, what I generally have, so I now, since I have been working in this field for long, I know that I know what my program plan will look like. But for you guys, you are starting new, so it will also be a question that, okay, now you have identified the regulation, now what? Now what is the next step? So next step. So next step, probably as a suggestion, I would say probably yes, you can make use of this PPT which we will be showing you today. It's just a 2-slide, nothing else. You can definitely use this, or else there are a lot of online versions available on how to do a basic data privacy program, and I'm sure you'll find similar steps in this, but this is more on a detailed side. So framework, then what you do, so let's say there are 50 control items in the framework. So even in data privacy policy, let's say in data privacy policy, it looks very easy. But then identification of jurisdiction is one part of that. Then after that, reviewing, and first is making a privacy policy, then getting it either signed by the audit committee or relevant committees within your organization. So all these functions form as a part of your framework. So it is your responsibility as a DPO or an analyst to see that how can I drill down one particular item into multiple small items so that it becomes measurable for me. So this is how when you say, let's say only privacy by design, I have to do privacy by design. It's a very vast topic and I don't know. So I want to make it measurable. So that's why then I'll try to make a policy first. Then I'll try to do the gap analysis that this is the thing which we are currently doing, but this is missing. Then I'll try to make a assessment template on basis on which I'll do the privacy by design assessment and so on. So that granularity, as long as you have in your framework, it will be very easy for you to map that granularity to the regulation.
Okay.
That is the idea. So then now we can start with the workflow if you wish.
Please. Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right. So then to start, let's look at now the workflow one by one. Okay. So the first part I have put as a global privacy handbook. Now, obviously, this will not be like a start to finish kind of a thing. Okay. This global privacy handbook, when we say, it will be a continuous document. But let's assume, let's say you start with this, because this privacy handbook is something like a manual for you. It's like a manual on what are the things you will be doing. So it will incorporate your regulations, applicable regulations. It will incorporate your data privacy framework. It will incorporate your procedural documents. It will incorporate even policies to some extent. So I remember when I was working with Khalij Times, it was one of the newspaper company. I had a 135-pager global privacy handbook. It was so comprehensive, and it was very good actually. I was also very proud of myself to make it because it had very intricate details about what needs to be done and how it needs to be handled and so on. So that is why after that experience only I started making this habit to have a global privacy handbook. So the idea here is, like I said, in the first phase, you identify the regulation, keep a track in the handbook, and then you identify the framework that you are going to follow. It can be anything. It can be a NIST framework. It can be ISO 27000 27701 framework. It can be this framework which we'll be discussing, any framework. So once you have identified, you just have it in the manual, and then you try to map it. Okay, so this global privacy handbook gives you a picture that, okay, and now I know what are the jurisdiction. Now I need to follow ahead. After that, the first thing then you will do is try to devise a policy. Now, because you know the jurisdiction, because you have a good idea about what are the specific factors. So for example, in European Union, uh, international data transfer is a big question, because if you want to do it, there are certain ways in which only you can do it. For example, you need to have a standard contractual clauses, or
Yeah.
there should find in corporate rules, or there should be approved code of conduct, and so on. So there are multiple ways to do it. So your privacy policy, because as long as you don't know the regulation, devising a privacy policy will be very difficult, correct? So that is why that becomes our first step. And next is, after identifying the jurisdiction, we devise a privacy policy. Now, if you ask me whether you do a privacy policy from scratch, obviously not. I use my industry, so for example, and now currently I'm working in insurance, so I'll see many insurance privacy policies. I'll see how those are devised, and then I'll try to tweak it to my needs and requirements. So that is how I do it. So obviously, if somebody wants to make it from scratch, that's your call. You can do it definitely, but if you want help, that is fine, but please don't copy as is the policy. Make sure that you have your own agenda in it. You make sure your organization needs are catered in that, your data subjects are catered in that, and so on. So that is how I make the policy. Okay. Now, after making this particular policy, um, so this, again, in policies also there are multiple ways to do it. One is the data privacy policy. Let's say it's sitting in the apex. Okay, either you can have a single data privacy policy, or you can have multiple short other policies. So for example, data retention is one, privacy by design is one, how to conduct DPIA is one, and so on. So that is completely your call. I like to go with a single privacy policy, where if it's a smaller organization, let's say not more than 100 200 people. If it's a big organization, then I would like to go with smaller ones, because it's easy to communicate the smaller ones rather than a bigger one. Because in a smaller organization, in one or two training, you can let know the people that, okay, these are the conditions and these are the things via which we'll be following. But in a larger organization, this becomes a challenge. So that is why I have this habit of having a chunk of policies, and then I'll keep it in an intranet somewhere so that everybody has access to. Okay, so after policy making, the next step would be to design certain templates. So these templates are what? Now, these templates generally will help you to know more about the business. So there can be many templates. So there can be a records of processing activity template. There can be a privacy impact assessment template. There can be a transfer impact assessment template, that if you have to transfer data from one jurisdiction to other, then so these are kind of template building. So till now, if you realize, till now you are not depending on any other departments within your organization to create this. So this you are doing wholly and solely by yourself, because as you dwell into this role, you will understand that our dependency on people is more rather than we doing our task. So if it was on me, I would have finished a lot of things pretty fast. But obviously, it's a group thing. It's a organization wide thing. So we have to depend on people. We have to respect their time as well, because not all people, when we want, they'll be free, right? So from that aspect, what I do, whatever is possible from my end, I try to create it as soon as possible. And then it gives me a buffer time that, okay, or somebody, if someone is free, then I can immediately start with the assessment for their, to see whether there are any risks and so on and so forth. So that's why this template building is one key aspect. Okay, after that, okay, you have created certain policies, you have created certain templates. Now what? Now maybe you try to see what is the existing part within
Hmm.
the organization. Now, privacy policy being one of them. So generally people have privacy policy. Now, why I have not, you know, focused it to make it before, like for example, the fourth step, why I haven't kept it as a first step, because when you see any existing policy, the notion, your thought process becomes very streamlined to that angle, so
Yeah.
which I generally avoid. So that's why what I do, I make my own privacy policy first. It doesn't take a lot of time, maybe a week or so. That should be, if I am very good with the regulations, a week or so would be good enough for me to create one.
Hmm.
So that is why, so once I have that knowledge that okay, these are the kind of things that should be there in my policy, then I go and see that okay, what is the existing policy, so that I can see the difference and make the changes. So that is where, so at the fourth step, what you do, you see what are the existing policy. Probably there can be a retention policy as well, there can be a training policy, there can be a number of policies. So you check and you map it to the ones that you have created, so that if there is any gap, you try to fill it. So that is the idea basically. And you try to, once you are in this role, you'll realize that you start with small wins first, so that you also feel motivated. At the same time, the organization also feels that yes, there is certain progress which is happening. Why I am saying this, because many people see data privacy as a, what you can say, compliance department. They call it as a complicated department generally in our world.
True. True.
So we don't want to, showcase that we are just blocking their work, because for us data privacy is a full-time role, but for them data privacy is like somewhat over and above what they do, because that is something, the controls that we need to put. Obviously now that comes under organization policy and all those stuff, but you will realize that change management is one of the very key aspect in this role. So making people understand certain things, making them learn, making them change the way they were doing things earlier, that is quite challenging than I think any of the other cases.
Hmm.
So if you are very good at communication skills, personal development wise, so I think this role will be pretty easy that way, because once you have the technical knowledge, this part becomes easy. But even if you have technical knowledge and this is challenging, then it becomes a pretty messy thing.
Understood.
This is what I have learned. Okay, so okay, so once you have reviewed everything, then you move to the easy wins. So for me, cookie compliance is the basic easy win, because cookie compliance, obviously you can't do it with by yourself.
Hmm.
You need to have certain tools for it, because cookies are generated automatically, so you can't manually manage the cookies which are going, right? So there are not very expensive software, I could say. Probably your company might be using many of the what you call softwares, which generally comes with the cookie related things. Okay, so you can either enable that, or you can ask for, that cookie implementation is better. Now few people might say that cookie policy and implementation can be taken up as phase 2 or phase 3, which is also fine. Why I have kept it here, because like I said, it's an easy win, and that's why if you want to demonstrate something on a quicker scale, this is a easy way. Okay, so once you have that, cookie policy is nothing but as you know, we whatever cookies are getting stored on the browser, certain regulations have given them the idea that yes, you can do that, but you only and only if the data subject has given consent to it. So that's why after GDPR, you might have recognized, like since last 4 5 years, there are a lot of cookie banners which comes on every website, right? A lot of cookie banners. You have to allow or reject the cookie before you can even see it.
True.
So that's the reason, that data privacy. That is why this has come out.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the case. Now, once I have done this, so the next step would be that okay, I try to either see records of processing activity, or I see privacy impact assessment. Now let's understand these both processes in detail, what it is. Now, when I say records of processing activity, so this activity, you can call it as, the Bible of the entire privacy program that you are running. Now, why I am saying this? Now, what are the contents? Let's understand what are the contents of records of processing activity. So the idea behind this particular document or activity is that you have a comprehensive knowledge of all the business process which is running within your organization,
Mm.
irrespective of whether it has personal data or not. So that is a prime responsibility of a data protection officer or those who are working in data privacy office, that this particular document is maintained. Now, in certain jurisdiction like GDPR, this is a pretty mandatory document where if the regulator asks, they have to present it. In certain case, it's a good to have kind of a environment. So, but we will go with the idea that yes, we have to have this document, because you will see that if you have this particular document, all the privacy modules which you are about to follow next will become very very easy. Okay, now let's understand what are the contents of these documents. So like I said, all the business processes, then it will have idea as to, for example, let's take HR. Okay, now HR has payroll as a process, HR has recruitment as a process, HR has performance management as a process, correct? So let's take these three processes. Now, uh, we will try to have this documented in the records of processing activity. Now, against each process, there will be a purpose. Now, obviously, payroll, the purpose of processing is to process
Mm.
the payroll of the of the employees. Similarly, recruitment and performance management is evaluation of employees. So on. So we will take purpose for each. After that, it will be like from where the data is coming. We will try to find out the source for that. For the payroll data, let's say it is coming from an HRMS system, for example. Okay, so we are trying to find out the source of the data. Or it can also happen that in recruitment, the recruitment process itself is the source of the data. So
Okay.
why this is important? Because if we know that from where the data is coming or from, or they are the source, it will be very easy for us to build a data flow diagram
Okay.
that will understand further why a data flow diagram is important. Okay, now that is where this records of processing activity comes handy, where we will know the source of the data, destination of the data. We will know a lot of technical aspects as to if the data is traveling to any third country, so that gets captured in this. If the data has a relevant legal basis. Now, for those who don't know what a legal basis is, so in order for an organization to process personal data, there are certain legal bases which are defined in the regulation. Okay, so this idea, this terminology of legal basis is common across all the jurisdiction. Probably the number of legal bases might be six somewhere, probably somewhere it might be four, only that is the difference. So you need to understand that for you as an organization to process a personal data, it has to fall under either one of the legal base. Now, what are these legal bases? So consent is one legal base. Then legitimate interest is one legal base. Performance of contract is one legal base. Then legal obligation is one legal basis, and so on. So do you want me to go into technical terms of
No,
this?
no, that's okay. We can have a next session on that better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So these legal bases get captured. And once the legal bases get captured, once you know the incoming and outgoing source, it also captures that what kind of personal information is used. For example, in
Okay.
payroll, it can happen that bank details is used, employee ID is used, employee email is used, and let's say their home address is used, for example. So these gets captured. So now this particular document is my repository of all the business processes. For example, in my previous organization, we had identified more than 230 business processes which were there. It was a big firm, so we had 230 plus processes in it. And in that 230 plus processes, we tried to identify which were using personal data and which were not. So that was the first case. And then after that, we try to find the source and the destination. So once you have an idea about how and where the personal data is lying within the organization, then
Hmm.
obviously next steps becomes easy. For example, privacy impact assessment.
Hmm.
Now, privacy impact assessment, again, it's a technical term. So in privacy impact assessment, the idea is to identify what are the risks involved if you are using personal data of a data subject. So risk involved to the data subject, not to the company, to the data subject. So for example, if you use my name and date of birth, probably the risk is pretty minimum. But if you are processing my credit card details, you are processing my bank account, then the risk is high. Then the evaluation here you are doing is to see that whether I should be, processing this at the first place. If yes, then what are the controls in place? What kind of information security controls do I have at my end in order to make sure that this particular data doesn't get exposed to any unauthorized entity?
Okay.
So this is type of risk you try to identify. So that is the phase that after that you come to making of data privacy addendum, or
Hmm.
say this is a kind of a document which is, first of all, when there are vendors involved, there will be contracts. In contracts there will be certain terms and condition clauses involved. Our role here is to check the existing contracts, that whether data privacy clauses were accepted or not. Okay, because
Okay.
this is a pretty easy step. You just need to see, and if it is not there, obviously you will either update that existing contract or put an addendum on top of it.
Hmm.
Idea here is you get contractually protected due to on the basis of this thing, and so that in tomorrow something happens, let's say a breach happens at a vendor's place, then at least you had made sure that all the liability was transferred to the particular vendor. So this is where the contract makes life easy of a data privacy officer, because the liability wise it balances out both the terms.
Okay.
Okay, so again this becomes an easy win, because managing contracts, you just have to, let's say, it can happen that you have a central portal where all the contracts are managed, or you have to take a list from, let's say, your
Hmm.
vendor team, or so on.
Decentralized. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that is why, and just see the contracts, don't go into much detail. So there are two ways to even see at it. So in one case, you are the owner of the data, like you are collecting data. So there are two concepts in it. One
Hmm.
is called as data controller and one is called as data processor. Data controller is someone who who makes decision about the data, and data processor, you can think of someone who doesn't have its own mind. It just acts on behalf of data controller. Whatever data controller says, only that way the data processor will act and give back the data. So that is the idea. So when you are working as a data processor, that time you can make a data processing agreement that yes, if you give us the data and if we are a vendor for you, then these are the contracts or these are the obligations which will be following, and so on. So we will not go in detail, but there are two kinds of documents: data processing agreement, which will go on the processor side, and it can, one will be general MSA, which is master service agreement. So that is how it is done.
That is
Okay.
one of the important insight I find, because when it comes to people always get confused with this two type of agreement, and thanks for bringing that particular topic in the session, because that gives a very good clarity. And second important part, you talk about this SCC or BCR and all that. That's also an important part which people used to don't give attention to that, and I have seen a lot of people get confused on that area. Thanks for bringing that point in this session, Pankaj.
Yes, yes, no worries. So